Welcome to the Brand Clarity Podcast, hosted by Visions to Images and Susie Liberatore. The Brand Clarity Podcast highlights several different topics, including entrepreneurship, franchises, and digital marketing trends. Visions to Images helps corporations and franchises with their branding, website, paid advertising, and digital marketing. Hello, everybody. Today on the podcast, I have Sara Branch, the CEO of Branch Consulting Group. I'm excited, and I actually met her through networking, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. Power of networking is amazing. Welcome, Sara.
Well, thank you, Susie. I'm really excited to be here too.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you on. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in this field.
Oh, yes, that's such a good question. I left a corporate job a couple of years ago, and I've been planning for it. As a matter of fact, my husband and I had been planning for me to leave. We were trying to find a business that was complementary to his business, and he owns an action coach franchise. So he's a business coach, and he's also an industrial organizational psychologist that's more HR oriented, personnel oriented for businesses. But anyway, so we were researching the companies that would be complementary to his existing ones, brick and mortar, whatever. Well, we landed on a franchise, network and action franchise. And during my due diligence, I asked the franchisor what kind of training they had. And he said, of course, we've got lots of training. We've got a library of videos, all that kind of stuff. Well, once I bought the franchise and had access to the library of videos, I realized that it really wasn't training. I had just left a job as the director of training and development for a software company. So I think I know what training is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I started researching where I could find training for the people who would join my networking group. And Susie, it doesn't exist. You can find sales training, you can find IT training, you'd find all sorts of things, but face-to-face networking training doesn't exist. I even researched it at our local university, and they don't have it. They actually have a major called professional selling, and they don't teach face-to-face networking. So that's how I got to writing a course.
Okay. Tell us first what networking is too, because there's so many ways, and some people might think it's even a sales, right? So what do you define that as?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because most people don't know how to network. I also discovered that in doing my research, trying to find training for the people who would join my networking group. And people think that what most people think is networking is actually socializing.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I call it net socializing.
Yes.
And that's just the way that networking has evolved over the years. Face-to-face networking for business was formalized in the late 1980s with a concept of you meet every week, you stand up and recite an elevator pitch. Eventually, people in the room will get to know you, sort of, kind of, and know your business and can talk about your business. But that has been the model of networking since the 1980s. Well, first of all, networking really is a face-to-face event. I tell people all the time, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, franchisees, 80 to 90% of your new business, not referrals, but net new business comes from face-to-face networking. Well, if that's the case, then you've got to be prepared before you get to the networking event. You've got to know what kind of networking event you're going to go to. You've got to know who your ideal customer is. You've got to know how to talk to your ideal customer. You've got to be able to book one-to-ones. And that right there, Susie, I think is the real linchpin. And that is a lot of people will go to a networking event, they socialize, they gather business cards, and then they go home and they go home and start calling people. And follow-up is one of the toughest things we human beings face on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. So, and I think to that point, it's sometimes after you try to follow up, you get ghosted, or it's just this ongoing circle of the hamster wheels, etc.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend earlier today about follow-up, and I said, I haven't done a formal research project, but if I were to look at all of the email connections and text connections I got from people and how many actually turned into a face-to-face event, it would be very, very small. Like maybe even 1%. So yes, it's nice to have people connect you to people via email,
Mm-hmm.
but the most effective is face to face and booking an appointment right there on the spot. That's the way it works.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk more about that. So let's just dive right in. So, one of the things that you talked about and is in your course is identifying your ideal customer. And
Mhm.
I know this is so huge because I niched down I've niched down a few times, right? And now I'm at the point where I'm really niched and I'm happy and I'm content and my audience is there. So, tell me more about what that means to you and how do we achieve that?
Well, understanding who your ideal customer is really is the crux of networking.
Mm-hmm.
I call my course Connections Change Everything because that's true. If you are connected to the right people, it will change your outlook, their outlook, all the people you're connected to. The connections will change everything. So the ideal customer means I've got to know as granular as possible who I'm looking for. That's going to do two things for you. One, it's going to clarify exactly who you're looking for. You're not going to be guessing. You're not going to be showing up in places thinking, well,
Yeah.
maybe I'll find somebody, maybe not.
Yeah.
The second thing it does for you is it gives you the ability to geographically or even electronically locate your ideal customer.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's geographic, then you need to do a little research about the networking groups in your area. Most major cities have chambers of commerce, business associations, things like that. And sometimes chambers of commerce will list associations that are affiliated with a specific job function. Let's say realtors. They may have a realtor list. They may have an insurance group. Then you can research those. But your ideal customer profile that you write, and you've got to write it down, will get you laser focused on where to find these people, an industry group, a conference, some specialty gathering. And you always want to go to those places where you find the highest concentration of your ideal customer.
And I have to tell you, Sarah, I've gone through so many networking and chamber of commerce stuff, did that stuff where I collected the business cards. It might have worked, it might have not have, all of those things. I got to know people and then I was like, no, I don't want to work with these people. Right. So it's so important to know where your ideal customer is and who they are, et cetera, so that you're just not wasting time and money, right? That's really what it comes to, especially for me. I'm just like, I don't have the time and energy to just go to things, to just go to them anymore. And most business owners don't because we're already overwhelmed. So
That's right. That is so true.
yes, I love it. So whenever we go to a networking event, it's always interesting because they're like, hey, give your 1 minute pitch, your 30-second pitch, your elevator pitch, whatever. And you say to use a value statement and not an elevator pitch. So what does that mean?
A value statement differentiates yourself from an elevator pitch in this way.
Mm-hmm.
An elevator pitch implies a sales pitch. The very first networking groups that were started in the late 80s, that's exactly what it was for. Because you were hoping that the other people in the room would memorize your elevator pitch and be an extension of your sales force. And every week in those weekly networking groups, you're required to bring leads. So it was nothing more than a sales transaction, a very, very, very transactional event. Now we're in the 21st century, and all along we should have had relationships developing, but now we know that successful networking is based on relationships and not transactions. So the value statement differentiates you in that you make a statement that causes people to listen to you, to want to maybe ask you another question. And they would want to come up to you after you've delivered your value statement and say, oh, tell me more. Or if you're a really good networker, you would see the looks on people's faces change as you're stating your value. So your value statement says, this is the value of my business. For me, I usually start with the statistic I quoted a minute ago. Did you know that small business owners and salespeople's new business comes from face-to-face networking? About 80 to 90% of the time. So the value of my business is getting you in front of your ideal customer. That's the benefit, is I can get you in front of not only one, but multiples of your ideal customer. And that has worked numerous times for me. Yeah, I go to a networking meeting and people come up to me and say, I need you because I'm not connecting with people, because they hear that.
It's much more memorable and unique rather than just trying to sell.
Exactly. I have a friend who does summer programs for college students.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at a networking meeting with him last Thursday, and when it was his turn to stand up, he said, how many of you know a college student who would like to graduate debt-free?
Mm-hmm.
They all raised their hands,
Right.
most everybody. And he said, well, that's what I do, is I give college students the opportunity to earn good, decent incomes during the summer such that they can graduate debt-free.
Wow, that's amazing.
And that just, people
That's
hear that
example, yeah.
and they know exactly what it means.
Well, and it resonated exactly with those kids because, of course, if they can get debt free, all aboard, yes, because it's tough and it's so expensive. So you're speaking to the right audience at the right time with the right words. It's going to make a difference.
So a value statement communicates some value, or they communicate the value through either an unusual statistic, a provocative question, and you follow it up with a statement or two, a sentence or two, that then completes that thought so that people will understand the value of your business and the benefit of doing business with you.
I love it. We need to do more of that. And I want to say one thing too, as you were speaking and talking about giving those referrals and stuff, I can't tell you how many times in those, and I don't want to knock on these networking groups, but I've had it happen where, you have to force these referrals and they're not qualified for me. They're not ideal for me. And
Right.
It's like, don't force people to give those referrals. You want them to happen naturally and be qualified. And that's what's really most important. It's not always about how many can you give. It's about the quality of them.
You are absolutely right. It's all about quality, not quantity, quality.
Yep, exactly.
You have to have relationships with people in order to pass a quality referral. So.
Absolutely. So you and I went to Springboard in September in Philly. It was a great conference. And I know our good friend Tony told us to book one-to-one meetings.
Uh-huh.
And I was trying that out because I've never really booked meetings on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me sometimes to do that. And so your next topic is, how do you even ask for a one-to-one meeting? For those who might not even know what is a one-to-one meeting and how do you overcome it?
A one-to-one meeting is where you have telephone call, Zoom call, face-to-face coffee, lunch, whatever you want.
Okay.
And discuss your business and the other person's business. You also want to talk about some personal things.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that I like to talk to people about booking a one-to-one meeting is something like this. Hey, Susie, the stuff you're working on is really, really interesting. And I'd like to get a one-to-one with you because I'd like for us to figure out how we can help each other.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody will turn down help. I certainly won't turn down help.
Right.
I like to get one-to-ones with a very wide variety of people, even people that may not be what I think to be my ideal customer, because you don't know who they know. The reason why you want to be motivated to get one-to-ones is back to that old problem I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, that bad F word called follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
That we human beings are so bad at. So the best way, the ideal way, is before you leave a conference, before you leave a networking meeting, book as many one-to-ones as possible. And the Springboard conference was large enough that we could have booked 5 one-to-ones each day. And then once we got back to our respective homes, have days full of Zoom calls. And in general, not always, but in general, my first one-to-one is a Zoom call. And it's easy to get to know somebody on a Zoom call.
Absolutely.
And then if you find out there's more things that you have in common, then you meet face to face. I did that this morning. I had a first meeting with somebody on a Zoom call,
Mm-hmm.
and we both agreed that we should show up together at a very specific networking event, be each other's wingman, and
There you
help
go.
get each other introduced to.
I love that. And
Yeah.
Tony's a big component of that as well, where she's like, who can I introduce you to? And be that wingman, be that person, be that sounding board. Because we all need that, especially when we're in a large event like that. We can get overwhelmed and not really know who to talk to or who's who. So it's like when you know people and you can make those introductions, it makes it so much smoother. Hey there, I want to interrupt this episode with a quick message. If you're listening to this podcast episode and want to learn about branding your franchise or small business, then go to brandingbridge.com. That's branding-bridge.com.
Well, another thing to do to get one-to-ones, especially if, first of all, went on the Chamber of Commerce site in your local area and you did find a networking group that was associated with the Chamber of Commerce that was very specific. Let's say you're looking for realtors and you see that there's a Southeast region realtors conference in Atlanta, Georgia, and you say, whoopee, I'm close enough, I can go. And you register, but you don't know anybody.
Right.
So the very first thing you do when you walk in the door, find anybody, grab anybody and say, who organized this meeting? I would like to meet them. Hopefully that person will say, I know, it's Susie. Let me introduce you to Susie. So you get introduced to Susie and you say, Susie, I'd like to meet this type of realtor, somebody who specializes in retirees, somebody who specializes first-time home buyers, something like that. And Susie will say, sure, let me take you around the room and introduce you to people. That's the fastest way to
love
meet
it.
people and get one-to-ones.
And that's perfect for small, like little networking ones, etc. I love that. That's a great idea. I've never really thought about that. So to be honest, because usually sometimes it's hard for me to overcome some of that stuff, but just asking that who put this on, they're gladly going to help you and make those introductions. And sometimes it might even be one of those things where you email the person like that's in charge before you go and say, hey, I'm going to be attending. Can you help me, guide me, etc. Sometimes they might even reach out to you. I've had times where I've registered for stuff and they're like, hey, we've never seen your name before.
Yeah.
We'll help you come find us at table X. Right. And so sometimes that happens too. So those people are there to help you. I love it.
If somebody notices that they've never seen your name before and that you're new, you know that at least that person is a quality networker because they're paying attention.
Exactly.
Pay attention. And if you can find the organizer's email in advance, yes, email them.
Exactly.
That doesn't happen very often.
No, not always. Not always. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes you just got to roll with it, but there are some times when you can or you know somebody. So
right.
All about that. How do you conduct a one-to-one meeting? I mean, we talked about you can do it Zoom, phone, lunch, whatever, but how do you really conduct it? What questions should you ask? And how do you take the pressure off yourself? Because I know I can be an extrovert and an introvert at the same time. So I'm always like, it can be very overwhelming for me.
Right. Well, I tell everybody sitting down at a one-to-one requires the secret sauce, which is asking questions. And for me, I'm an over-the-top extrovert, and I have had to learn how to ask a question and keep my mouth shut. It's taken me years. My husband calls me, I'm not only an extrovert, but I'm a jet-powered bulldozer. You better watch out. So I've learned the fine art of asking questions. And you need to write out some questions beforehand until you get the hang of the questions. And they should be a mix of personal and business questions. I like to follow a format. There's an acronym called FORM, and oh my gosh, the guy who came up with that, oh man, and maybe his name will come to me in a minute, but it's called FORM, FORM, and the F stands for family. So you want to ask family questions. You want to ask organization questions. Where do they work? Who do they work for? R stands for recreation.
What they do for fun.
Yeah, do something. What do you do for fun when you're not working? What do you do? Right. And M stands for message. What's their why? Why are they doing it? So those are some good surface things. Now, if you feel like this person could possibly be a prospect, then you would want to ask them some marketing qualifying questions. How'd you get your business started? How long have you been in your business? What's your major motivating factor for keeping you in your business? Do you have any challenges that you need to overcome? And as you talk about challenges, I often say, now let's talk about business challenges. I know a lot of people, and I can probably connect you to somebody who either can help you or they can find somebody who can help you. So let's get our networks going, see who I can connect you to if you have any challenges. To me, the form questions, FORM questions, basically give you permission to ask the deeper questions about their business. So you think about it as the small talk, and there is a book that's called The Art of Small Talk. If you feel you need to read that book, go right ahead. But the form concept really helps you do a little small talk and a little business talk. Then you warm things up a little bit, and then you can ask those marketing qualifying questions. And even if you don't think they're your prospect, ask them marketing qualifying questions anyway, because that'll help you connect them to the right people.
Absolutely. And I think when you're doing the one-to-ones, that's not salesy, but in a way, when we are doing sales calls, we're always asking about family, business, life, etc., because that's how we build relationships and build connections. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, going through the sales cycle, even with prospects, it's like, well, I'll take notes and put it into my CRM and stuff and just remember little bits and pieces so that even if they say we're not ready yet, like 5 months from now, I'm like, hey, how's Joanna doing? Is she doing good? Stuff like that. And that's also going to help you. And they're going to be like, oh, I remember our conversation. Maybe I should reconnect with her because I now need somebody for XYZ and she might know somebody.
I am so glad you said that.
Yes.
Because one of the things when I get into the heavy details with people about one-to-ones is before you finish booking the one-to-one, you should get the person's card, or if they don't have their card, or if they have an electronic card, make sure that you put their contact information into your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Your phone is the best database that you will ever, ever, ever have. And I recommend to people to go through their phone about once every 6 to 8 weeks and
Okay.
remind them of people that they're connected to, but that they haven't chatted with or emailed with. And as you just said, Susie, you may not have thought they were prospects 6 months ago, but maybe they are now.
I've
And,
had that happen so many times.
oh, yeah.
Or they know somebody and they think of you and like that. That's why you just have to keep working the system and to follow up for sure.
Yeah. How many times have you contacted somebody and they say, oh, yeah, I was thinking about you the other day.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
want to connect you to Joe.
So many times that's happened.
Oh, yeah.
Or vice versa. Yes.
Staying in touch with people is the best way to get referrals too. So.
Absolutely. And what I try to do too sometimes, I mean, getting them on your phone is a great idea, but what I'll try to do as well is get them on LinkedIn as well so I can have that connection, which brings us into our next portion of social media networking, which I'm excited about. But yes, I love LinkedIn. I can always connect with people on LinkedIn at conferences, etc. It's just the quickest, easiest way. Of course, you want to have your contact in your phone. So tell me a little bit more about that topic.
Yeah, with social media, it depends on the type of business that you have, but the approach you just mentioned, as soon as you meet somebody, connect with them on LinkedIn. Absolutely do that.
Mm-hmm.
And when you and I were at Springboard, I was furiously trying to connect on LinkedIn with everybody I possibly could. And what was real gratifying is there were a lot of people that I missed whom the next week were connecting with me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn gives you the ability to do so many things. It's such a powerful platform that you should be connected to everybody that you possibly can that is within your sphere of your business, of your ideal customer's business, that kind of thing. Because for me, my ideal customer is the chief marketing officer of an emerging franchisor. And having gone to Springboard, gave us the ability to go through the list of attendees and download the names of people that we wanted to contact. But on LinkedIn, you can also connect with people. I try to do that once a week, is go back and look through at the contacts I've got in my phone, make sure they match what's on LinkedIn. If I'm not connected, connect to them. If there's something coming up that I want to tell people about, or specifically people, not something I want to post necessarily on LinkedIn. With social media, you should have a consistent message across all social media. I'll start with my website. I'll put something on a blog, post it on my website, post it on LinkedIn, put it on a business Facebook page. I personally am not a big fan of Instagram. I'm all B2B. So
Same.
if I were B2C, I might use Instagram. But the only two I use are LinkedIn and Facebook. And LinkedIn is so powerful and it has such great search capabilities that you can search through all of the contacts. And if you're not sure how to search, ask ChatGPT and it will give you step-by-step directions on how to find the people you're looking for on LinkedIn. You don't need to go find a LinkedIn expert. You don't need to sit in front of a YouTube video trying fast forward, rewind, fast forward, rewind. Just ask ChatGPT and it'll tell you how to do it.
Well, I first grew my business more on Facebook, but that was when I was doing photography and design work. Now it's really shifted to marketing and then to franchising, etc. So LinkedIn is where I really focus the most. It's been successful. There's so much science behind it that it's just amazing. And I mean, I still post on Facebook, but I'm like you. Instagram is like, no thanks. I'll post on there sometimes, but it's not really relevant, right? I don't, my audience isn't on there. And this goes back to knowing where your audience is, right? So are they on LinkedIn? They're more than likely going to be on LinkedIn. And then from LinkedIn, you can also gather their information or ask them or book a one-to-one. So it kind of all falls together into everything that we just talked about.
Yeah. And you said book a one-to-one on LinkedIn. Yes, you can. You can book a one-to-one on LinkedIn.
All you do is you say that same thing. How can I help you?
How can we help each other?
How can we help each other?
And I just got connected with a couple of people today on LinkedIn who just happened to be in my local geographic areas.
It's so amazing because it's a small world. Like I'll connect with people and then they're like, oh, we've met here. I've seen or heard about you. Right. And it's just like, oh, they already know. So they're following. And that's when like, oh, all the networking works together and it's a power tool.
That's right. And that is just, it's so amazing. You said there, yeah, okay. We're all starting to pay attention that how closely connected we are. So.
Well, I have two last things. And the first one is if you could give anybody advice about networking, if they're just starting off, what advice would you give them?
So to keep it simple, I would say the very first thing you need to do is identify your ideal customer and then find the places where you can find the largest quantity of them. That's going to save you time, effort, energy, frustration. Know where they are. Know who your ideal customer is and know where they are. Then go to those events where you have found them, whether it's a conference or an industry gathering or some special event. But get to one of those events and learn how to navigate your way around. As you and I discussed earlier, if you've never been there before, try to do some research on the event, try to find the organizer via email. If you can't, as soon as you walk in the door, find someone and ask them who is the organizer, who's in charge of this, and then go tell them who your ideal customer is, and you'll start getting connected almost immediately. So to me, that is the essence of getting started. And once you've got started and you can talk to people and you're still not sure about one-to-ones, definitely talk to them about, let's find out how we can help each other. That process right there, ideal customer, where they hang out, go to that meeting and learn to navigate your way around the meeting. That is the first couple of steps that you need to be a successful networker.
Love it. Thanks for sharing. And then if anybody wants to learn more about you or your company, how can they find you?
My website is branchconsulting.group. So my company name is Branch Consulting Group. So just turns out that I was able to get branchconsulting.group. My email is Sara, S-A-R-A, no H. I'm an H-less Sara. So Sara at branchconsulting.group. And if you want to reach me by phone, my telephone number is 470-707-3598.
Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate all of your knowledge and your expertise, and this was great stuff. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your interest in what I do. I love helping people feel more comfortable about talking to other people.
Thank you, everybody, for listening in on today's Brand Clarity episode with Susie Liberatore. Two things. First and foremost, please, if you liked this episode, please subscribe and leave some positive reviews. Also, don't forget to sign up for Stop Sending Your Customers to the Competition and get my insider secrets to compelling branding that converts. You can find that at branding-bridge.com. It's a free workbook for you to check out right now, all of the branding techniques and strategies that I use for my paying clients.